Last season was a battle against our rivals Palace. They had an insane season and finished just a point behind us in 4th. Of course, we had the bragging rights in the cup final too. And right now, the board can't get enough. Fans, on the other hand, are a little harder to please. They're still a little bit annoyed with the loss to Bayern Munich in the Champions League, which I feel is a little harsh. But anyway, we've been given a healthy budget to try and improve the side for the upcoming campaign. So of course we seek Michael's knowledge of players, and once again he forgets we only have a £20 million per player budget. But it seems from a very quick search my scouts have already reported an insane Senegalese centre-back from Standard Liège who's just 18. I won't show him off just yet. We actually needed a backup goalkeeper, and the Georgian from Valencia is a perfect choice given that he is actually good enough for the first team if we didn't have Karnaseki, and he costs less than £5 million. A lot of players asked for new contracts in the last couple of seasons, and it seems our wage expenditure has nearly tripled in 4 years. Hard to argue really when we've become champions in England just 3 seasons in though. And to be honest, Thuram is our highest paid player and he's only on 145k a week, which is basically pennies compared to what Haaland's being paid. And that's shown too in the club's bank balance, which has sat very healthy now for a couple of seasons. Hey, we signed the centre-back from Standard Liège to age 18, he looks fantastic, and I genuinely think I need to give him some game time this season. £20 million was his release clause, so it was right at the peak of our limit. So if I'm looking at my best 11, I think I'd probably slot him in for most games this season, especially against weaker opposition alongside Van Heck, and maybe scoot him out to the left side as he's strong with both feet. However, when the first game came around, I had to make more changes due to fitness issues and injuries. And we kicked off our season within just 4 minutes when Marcus Leonardo snatched the ball off the Villa defence and dispatched his shot. Our second goal was even more impressive. The quick layoff passing and the assist into the path of Thuram was sublime. Aston Villa did score early in the second half though through Josh Sargent, which did threaten the 3 points we were on our way to, but thankfully we scored another 2 goals with Leonardo picking up his second in the 89th minute, and substitute Kozlowski got the 4th with his 4-1 opening day win with a wonderful finish. However, the start of the season didn't all include good performances, because after going 1-0 up and 2-1 up, we lost at home to Arsenal, and we have Crystal Palace next. So with Ferguson's recovery and Marcus Leonardo's good performance, he starts in the derby. And I really think we made the right call as Alex Scott was played through within just 8 minutes to give us the lead. And following on from that, Marcus Leonardo put in a man of the match performance, scoring 3 goals in this match alone to take his tally very high just after 3 league matches. He picked up 1 in the first half, 2 in the second, in a game we absolutely dominated against a team last season that caused us so many problems. And we sent the fans home buzzing with a 6-1 win. But again, we followed that with a poor result. And then we faced a Liverpool side captained by Trent with Kai Havertz as their key player.
Sorry, what?
And after a goalless first half, Liverpool took the lead through Tielemans. It did took us another 15 minutes, but we worked the throw in and Thuram's shot somehow found the net to equalise. And although he didn't start the game, Ferguson made an appearance off the bench and scored the winner in the 83rd minute. 16 from England, including of course Palace, are in the Champions League with us this season, and we have our fixtures in. The transfer window shut and Palace got a deal on deadline day done for Diogo Costa from Porto. That's not bad at all. But an incredibly quiet window for us because I don't really feel like we needed to splash on loads of players this summer as we go into a very interesting September, which started off with Gutierrez getting a straight red card against Southampton within 4 minutes. Thankfully though, Leonardo and Thuram combined with a lovely 1-2 and scored the only goal of the game. I gave Ferguson a start against Manchester United though, and he didn't let me down, scoring in the 3-0 win at the Amex. September also included a win and a loss in the Champions League, a 0-0 draw against Wolves and a win in the Cup. But October you don't want to miss with a run of AC Milan, Newcastle and Manchester City. Before AC Milan, we got back to winning ways in the Champions League with a big win against Salzburg at home. Kozlowski started after a bit of a rotation and he proved he should be getting more game time, scoring the first 2 goals. Shares got yet another back post header from a corner to score, but again the goal of the month probably went to McAllister, who from out of nowhere struck this beauty into the top corner. No goalkeeper in the world is going to save that. Hilariously, the goalkeeper it was Salzburg's keeper Fruchel, who I almost signed instead of Karnaseki. And we formed a good run of games around that Champions League match with 2 wins against Norwich and Leeds. Right into that hard run of games I mentioned before, that didn't go so well. I mean, a draw at the San Siro against AC Milan is not a bad result at all, but being in the lead twice against Newcastle and losing 4-2 with an own goal is a bit demoralising. Followed by Man City knocking us out of the League Cup with 2 goals from a Belgian new gen from centre midfield. We were still up there in the league title race though heading into November, with the leaders Chelsea in a match that we have coming up very soon. We currently sat in the top 8 of the Champions League group as well, but Palace all the way down in 27th have only beaten Genk and lost to PSG and Rangers. Unlucky. It was another 3 points for us though when we welcomed AEK Athens to the Amex and Alex Scott scored the only 2 goals of the game. And we looked unstoppable against Fulham, winning 5-0 away. But then we lost to Middlesbrough at home. And when it was finally time to take on Chelsea at the top of the table clash, they opened the scoring really early on through Sterling. But in a very tight encounter, it didn't take us long before Thuram picked up the equalising goal, not giving either side the advantage they craved. So instead, we gifted them a 2-point advantage just 3 days later when we drew with West Ham, dropping us down into 3rd place with City now in the driving seat if they win their game in hand. And once again, that's who we face in the next month, right after a game against Real Madrid. And honestly, strap yourselves in because December as a whole is mental, with the Christmas period also including games against Arsenal, Tottenham and Manchester United. This Champions League match against Real Madrid had everything including drama and 2 absolutely stunning goals. Thuram put us 2 goals ahead before a corner was cleared and the ball dropped to Alex Scott, who rifled in a volley from the edge of the area to make it 3-0. In the second half though, Real responded and Chukwueze scored maybe an even better goal right into our top corner. And Scalvini brought the game back to within a goal, but just 2 minutes later, a fantastic through ball found Ryder and we defeat Real Madrid 4-2 in the Champions League. And from that wildly entertaining game to having to wake people up to tell them the final whistle had gone in the match against Man City. But our next set of games made me celebrate like this. Because despite our trip to the Emirates starting with Arsenal slicing us open within 15 minutes to us comedically smashing the ball against Martinelli to score, we actually played very well and it was the start of a very good run. Evan Ferguson was back in the starting 11 and scoring goals like we know he can, getting 2 putting us into the lead before Matoma picked up a 3rd. It was even easier against Spurs as Arda Güler scored in a 2-0 win in our second trip to North London in just 2 games. Then we came home for Boxing Day and we battered some Wolves 4-0. And before the new year came in, we visited Old Trafford where Ruud van Nistelrooy is still the manager and we took complete control, scoring 2 goals before half-time and picking up our 3rd from Alex Scott without even letting him score a goal. And yet we still couldn't jump ahead of City in first. But we had 2 major problems with the squad. Ferguson has been starting games because Marcus Leonardo broke his lower leg at the end of October. But now Ferguson is out injured for a while as well. And bids began to come in for our star players. Now, I had no intention of selling, but I did buy a new player, former FM Wonderkid legend Thiago Almeida, for just £7.5 million, who is still in the MLS and a cracking squad player. In the league, we started the new year with a 5-0 win against Leeds, but I can't decide whether it was a good month or not. Because the contrast in matches and results were all over the place, and defensively, we were sometimes a shambles, like this goal we gifted to Norwich to equalise in a 1-1 draw at Carroll Road. Straight into a 6-0 away win just days later in Copenhagen, where we had 33 shots on goal. Coming back to England and we let Sesko score a late equaliser and pinch man of the match in our home fixture, a 2-2 draw against Spurs. Who, by the way, would be giving my dad absolute wet dreams with Simeone as their manager.
Get in!
But with another Champions League win against Genk and then a disappointing draw to Villa again, it was an unbeaten run since Middlesbrough back in late November. Just too many draws. And it's 3rd in the league, 7 points behind Chelsea, who are beginning to break away from us, but we did finish in the top 8 of the Champions League, with Palace having to go into the playoffs. But once again, the fixtures in February sees us host leaders Chelsea, next with an away trip to City at the end of the month. I don't think I've ever seen a result quite like Brighton versus leaders Chelsea before. After winning the Serie A with Milan, Tuchel was back in charge at the start of the season for the Blues. And I don't think he would have ever taken a battering quite like we gave Chelsea on this day, with them sitting top of the Premier League, because there was probably a good chance he would get the sack after this match is finished. And I'm probably going to get some free points from every man in Brighton and some knickers thrown at me from every woman there, because we went and scored 8 goals in 69 minutes before finally taking our foot off the pedal and allowing them to score an injury time goal to end the match 8-1. I'll say it again, we win the match 8-1. 8 bloody 1. And 3 days later we got stuffed 4-0 from Newcastle in the FA Cup. And although we then only drew to Forest, I don't think the women of Brighton will be asking for their garments to be returned, because when we travelled to the Etihad, we showed the same amount of mercy we showed Chelsea, and we destroyed them 3-0. Right before we play Barcelona in the Champions League. But before we do, look how tight it is in the title race now. Just 2 points separating the top 4 teams with 9 games remaining, and City just 2 points behind us in 5th. Where did Liverpool come from, by the way? But with my main aim of winning the Champions League for Brighton, I was very disappointed with our first leg performance at the Camp Nou. We didn't really show up, and Barcelona were rather lethal, scoring 2 goals, taking the big advantage into the second leg. West Ham capitalised on our misfortune, scoring very early in the following league match before the second leg. This was the kick up the arse we needed though, probably, and even after Evan Ferguson's winner, Thiago Almeida scored the first 2 goals for the club, securing all 3 points in one of the closest title races I have ever seen. We took Barcelona to extra time after a 3-1 lead in the second leg, but Frank Kesse's 119th minute winner unfortunately knocked us out of the competition. But our season was far from over. We beat Fulham, but once again couldn't beat Middlesbrough, and April had some very winnable games and a hard clash against Newcastle, while May included Palace and title contenders Liverpool on the final day of the season. And you just know, with the 2 teams first and second right now, that's going to be the title decider more than likely. April couldn't have gone any better, with a very tight 1-0 win against Newcastle, followed by a late win against Everton and a 7-1 win against Brentford, where a returning Marcus Leonardo scored 4 goals after his leg break earlier this season. I'm chuffed for him, and it's on to Crystal Palace, with us currently sat on top and them needing to win to keep their European qualification dreams alive. And to be fair to them, they did get to the round of 16, only to miss out thanks to 2 goals by Mbappe in extra time in the Champions League this season. But there was only 1 goal in the derby, and it was Palace who snatched it in the 82nd minute as well. And wouldn't you know it, Diogo Costa got man of the match. Amazingly, both Chelsea and Liverpool lost as well, and we still held on to that top position. And we dispatched Southampton even after their penalty after 3 minutes, quite comfortably. But Liverpool lost to Chelsea, and the title could only go to 2 clubs on the final day. We just need to match Chelsea's result when we play Liverpool. But you'll never guess who Chelsea is playing on the final day. They're of course away to Crystal Palace. And at Selhurst Park, our biggest rival scored within 12 minutes to almost gift us the trophy well within our grasp. But at Anfield, we gave ourselves an even bigger advantage when Marcus Leonardo scored to make it 1-0, and the score stayed the same at both stadiums until the 87th minute, when Liverpool scored an equaliser, meaning if Chelsea win, they clinch the title from us. And it wasn't entirely over at Palace, but fortunately for Brighton, it was a home goal in the 95th minute, allowing us to lift the Premier League title once again, just a point ahead of Newcastle and 2 in front of Chelsea in what was an epic title race. I need to lie down.